After a whole month-long break, Chapter 1054 didn't disappoint. Not only do we get to see a continuation of the situation with Green Bull, but we also learn a lot about what happened with Sabo, as well as some new information on Shanks. Shanks is finally making his move. We see that Shanks is in the general vicinity of Wano, and most of his crew assume that they're there to have a reunion with Luffy, as they have read the newspaper and agree that he's become a great pirate at this point. After reminiscing on Luffy a bit, Shanks tells him that he doesn't plan on meeting Luffy in Wano, and then goes on to remark to Ben Beckman that isn't it time that they go and claim the One Piece. Just like Shanks' crew, a lot of us assumed that he was here to finally meet with Luffy, after finally reaching the same status as himself, a Yonko. But since that's not the case, it begs the question, why is Shanks near Wano? And an even more concerning question, is Shanks evil? From what I've seen in general, there are two thoughts on why Oda decided to include Shanks in the story so close to Wano. First is that Oda is using it for promotion for the upcoming movie One Piece Film Red, which comes out in a few weeks in Japan. The second thought is although he didn't come to have a reunion with Luffy, he did come to Wano for a reason and isn't just passing by. And that's mostly what I would like to talk about today. What exactly is Shanks doing? And what is his next move to claim the One Piece? When I first thought about this, a few options popped in my head. But one that stood out to me because of the recent revelation that it's in Wano is the Pluton. More and more, it seems like Shanks has had a master plan since the very beginning. But this chapter basically cemented it for me. And if he plans on getting the One Piece, having a battleship that can destroy an island with a single blast would definitely help against people like Blackbeard and the world government. And as we know, Blackbeard himself went to go after something with his entire crew, so he will also probably get a huge boost in power. And this leads me to my next point. I believe that Shanks' next move will lead him into direct conflict with Blackbeard. But I'm also a believer of the theory that Shanks will eventually die to the hands of Blackbeard. So if you're connecting the dots like me, if both of these things were to come true, and Shanks doesn't meet with Luffy in Wano, then that would mean Luffy would never get the chance to give Shanks his Straw Hat back. I personally don't know how I feel or think I would feel if this were to come true, but it's definitely interesting to think about. Another option, since he did say he was going after the One Piece, or it's about time that they go after the One Piece, would be he came to Wano to get Kaido's road poneglyph, or at least a rubbing of it, because there is always a chance that he does know how to get back to Laugh Tale, since he basically I think he got to the island right before they left to it, and assuming he didn't just ignore everything all the grown-ups were saying on Roger's crew, he would have had a general idea. But if that's not the case, then he would definitely need all of the road poneglyphs, and if he doesn't have Kaido's yet, now that he's defeated, this would be the easiest opportunity for him to get it. In my opinion, it'd be pretty hard for Shanks to just sneak onto the island and take something and leave without somebody noticing. But I guess it's definitely a possibility because the Roger Pirates were able to do it back when Kaido was on Wano, and they snuck out and got away without having to deal with anybody. So it's definitely a possibility. But in my opinion, I honestly feel like Luffy or Zoro or Yamato would sense them. But if he really is near Wano to get something or pick something up, those are the only two things I can think of. Let me know in the comment section down below if you can think of anything else, and maybe I'm just forgetting. One of the next big topics that came about from this chapter is the long-running theory of Shanks being evil, or at least being in direct opposition to Luffy. And I think what most people mean by that is that he is still on this quest to become the Pirate King like most other pirates are. So even if Luffy does get in his way, it's more of just a rival pirate type of thing and not a I'm directly trying to cause harm to him and the rest of the world or whatever his grand plan may be if he does end up being evil. I think a lot of people think he just may be a pirate with the same goals as a lot of other pirates. So him wanting to go after the One Piece as well just puts him in direct opposition to Luffy in the sense that they want the same goal. Now I do know there's a lot of people who actually believe Shanks is evil. Evil in the sense of the world government, the Gorosei, the celestial dragons. And honestly, I've never subscribed to a theory like this. I don't really see where people pull it from. But from my understanding of the theory, I do think a lot of people think if he is evil, he is in some way allied with the world government, celestial dragons, specifically the Gorosei, the higher-ups. And we have seen Shanks do some pretty strange things that could lead people to this point. I wouldn't actually draw these connections, but I know a lot of people do. You know, he stopped the war at Marineford when realistically they still had a lot of power on their side with Garp, Sengoku. Akainu, he was heavily damaged, but he was still able to fight. Aokiji, Kizaru, and a few of the warlords still. And from what we've seen, that should be enough to take on at least a Yonko crew. So him being able to just roll up and stop the war completely is a little bit strange to people. And this was before we found out that Shanks' crew has the highest average bounty out of any crew, out of any Yonko crew, that is. So I think like Roger's crew and Luffy's crew, it's just a lot of higher level people than there is lower level people. And that kind of results from them having a smaller crew in general. So at that point in the story, I know a lot of people probably didn't understand really how strong Shanks' crew was and how much of a threat they could be to the world government and the Marines at the time. But in the more recent years, we have seen Shanks meet with a Gorosei, something realistically that no pirate should be able to do, and for most people, even the Yonko shouldn't be able to do. So from what we've seen, this basically comes from some sort of respect or fear maybe that the world government have of Shanks, whether that's his power, his knowledge, or whatever. Some reason they fear him enough or respect him enough to allow him to have an audience with the Gorosei. I know a lot of people have drawn a connection between them. Maybe he was a celestial dragon at one point. We don't really know where he was before Roger's crew. We don't know how early Roger picked him up. We don't know the circumstances of his birth. All we know is there is quite a bit of mystery behind Shanks' younger years, and we did see Roger and Rayleigh even kind of hint about them possibly picking up Shanks and Buggy when they were quite young, maybe even babies. Shanks is 39 years old right now. That would make him one at the events of God Valley, which happened 38 years ago. And as we know, for some reason, Roger and Garp were protecting celestial dragons at God Valley against Rox and his crew. And as I said earlier, Roger and Rayleigh did hint that at one point they had babies on their crew. So a lot of people do theorize that they picked up Shanks at this time, and for some reason he was like a celestial dragon. And this is a very interesting theory. I think it'd be cool if it happened. There's not a lot of credibility for it really, because I'm pretty sure Shanks was born in the West Blue. And we don't know for sure, but I think it's a good bet to assume that God Valley isn't in the West Blue, and most likely is in the Grand Line, and presumably even further the New World of the Grand Line. And even then, I would find it pretty hard to believe that a celestial dragon would be born outside of the Holy Land. So yeah, there's not a lot of credibility, but it is super interesting, like I said. And I do find it a little bit weird as why he would still have any sort of allegiance or connection to the celestial dragons, because he was taken away at one, if this theory was true, 1 year old. So he wouldn't even remember ever being a part of them or being with them or being born into them. So how anyone would find out besides the Roger crew and maybe Garp, I don't really see how anyone would even know there's a celestial dragon baby who became a pirate under Roger and eventually became a Yonko. And then for some reason still holds ties to his very, very, very early life with the celestial dragons. That's basically all I really have to say on that theory. A theory that I think is more likely is that he's kind of more of a force for neutral justice, I guess would be the best way I'd say it. Well, I guess not the best way I'd say it. I think a better way would be he keeps the balance in the sense that he doesn't really pick a side, whether it's pirates or the world government or the Marines and whatever his plan is kind of just to keep everything in balance and not throw everything out of loop. Because realistically, if, let's say, Blackbeard were to get the One Piece, it would throw everything into chaos and, only the strong would survive and the weak would die off. There'd be murder, there'd be pillaging, whatever. Like, there wouldn't be any rules, there'd be anarchy. And even if someone like Luffy, we don't know what his end goal is, like what he plans on doing after he gets to One Piece, but there's a good chance there'd be a lot of battles and anarchy, a lot more pirates would rise up. But if he doesn't fully defeat the world government, then I don't see them just laying down and quitting and whatever. I think they'd take a stronger action against the pirates and probably become even more tyrannical to try to stop more pirates from becoming a force to be reckoned with like Luffy is. And it'll realistically just throw everything out of whack. So maybe Shanks, being a more reasonable person, realizes that you kind of need a little bit of both. You need freedom, you need a little bit of chaos, but you still need control. You still need something that holds everything together, just maybe not as tyrannical. I don't know what exactly that plan would entail. I don't think he'd ever want to rule anybody or anything in the way that a world government does. Or even if the revolutionaries were to win, they would eventually have to take over. I don't think he'd want to rule the way they do. So maybe he would kind of play a puppeteer role in the same way that Im does in the shadows, where nobody really knows that he's there, but he's making the rules, he's pulling the strings. And there is always a chance that we're just looking too deep into this. He just doesn't think it's the right time to meet Luffy yet. Maybe he has a few things he wants to deal with. Like I said earlier, he said he wants to deal with Bartolomeo, which doesn't really make that much sense. He's not a big threat to him. He just burned down his flag. and he put up Luffy's flag, so it shouldn't really matter if he plans on letting Luffy, obtain the One Piece at some point. But realistically, I think he just doesn't want to let Luffy off easy. I don't think he wants him to let him achieve the One Piece easily, even if he does believe that Luffy is the one who should eventually find the One Piece. I think he just wants Luffy to be able to prove himself against the hardest obstacles, and he's going to put himself in Luffy's way to be that obstacle. But yeah, guys, those are my first quick thoughts on the chapter, at least the Shanks part of the chapter. Let me know what you guys think about it. Did you get any sort of vibes that may have portrayed Shanks as a more conniving, evil person? Or do you think it's the same thing as it's always been? He just doesn't plan on seeing Luffy right now for whatever reason he may have. What do you think Shanks actually plans to do if he does obtain the One Piece? Do you think that's his goal, or is he just trying to show off to his crew that, yeah, we're still pirates, we still want to get the One Piece and become the king of the pirates? Or do you think it's something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts down below. I look forward to a little bit more thoughts on this chapter in future videos, and maybe some other videos before then. But until next time, later.